Welcome to the African Utility Week studio. I am Denise, the content manager and editor for Ngerati. And with us today we have Mr. Kibido from Eskom, the General Manager of Transmission Grid Planning. It's quite an important position that you hold currently. I believe that you will be doing a discussion on the integration of renewables
Yes.
and touching on independent power producers this coming Thursday. Would you like to expand on that with regards to the challenges and the opportunities currently?
Okay, basically the whole IPP program has been a learning curve for us in Eskom. As you know, in the past we used to be a utility that does everything from generation to distribution. In the past it used to be easy for me as a transmission planner to work closely with my generation counterparts to make sure that the networks are there when the generation plants are ready. But the IPP projects now have put quite a different spin now to the planning, because now we have to work with people who got different timelines and different objectives, which makes our planning quite a challenge. But I'm happy to say that so far, for the 3 rounds that have happened, we've been able to connect them on time. We've been able to have the infrastructure available at the right time.
Right.
But most of it was because we had available capacity on the transmission grid.
Okay, all right. I believe that some are saying that perhaps the network is not all that prepared for the renewable integration. I mean, where does South Africa stand currently as far as integration is concerned? When will this all take place? When will we have all this fantastic renewable energy flowing through the grid?
In fact, already 3,900 megawatts of IPP projects. We already have networks to connect that amount of generation. But that's related to the 3 rounds that have already been announced by DOE, the rebid 1, 2, 3.
Yes.
But going forward, we can foresee there are going to be constraints on the grids.
Yeah, for sure.
The biggest challenge for us is we're always never sure where are the successful bidders' plans going to be. Because the DOE is running the program independent of Eskom, which means that when the bids are announced, we only know then that which part of the network we need to strengthen. That's why if we were in an ideal situation, we'll know exactly which parts of the network to strengthen prior to the successful bidders being announced, which is something we're going to have to work on in the future.
Yeah, I mean, that does seem almost a bit crazy that you've got this renewable source coming in, you've got this capacity coming in, but the transmission grid possibly can't handle that. I mean, is there a way to overcome this gap in communication or gap in planning? Because it does seem, it must put quite a bit of pressure on your department. Is there a way forward that they're going to try and bridge this project planning gap?
DOE, who are the project managers for the IPP program, have realized that in so much that currently we are working full steam with them, trying to minimize the misalignments that we had in the past, where we would have IPP plants awarded contracts but no grid. Right. Going forward, we're going to work even more closer so that when the plants do get built, there will be infrastructure available. The ideal situation for me would be upfront, before any of the bids are even started, we demarcate areas in the network where renewable plants are going to be built, so that we do the reinforcements in advance, so that by the time the bids are announced, we know the infrastructure is going to be there.
Chicken before the egg, right?
Yeah. Because transmission infrastructure always takes longer to build. Right. Transmission infrastructure, you've got a cycle of about 7 years minimum, if you've got no issues.
So that's quite a shocking bit of information, because you've got your renewables coming in at quite a rate, because there's obviously a lot of interest in it now from foreign investors and local investors. Industry and commerce, they're wanting a reliable source of power now, which is probably going to come from renewables. So are you saying that the specific areas will have to wait 7 years for the transmission to be able to handle that kind of renewable power?
What we've done to make sure that nobody has to wait for that long, we publish on an annual basis what we call grid connection capacity document.
Right.
The view of that document is to tell the industry which are the parts of the grids that have got capacity, so that hopefully the investors in the IPP projects can know where to locate their plants, where there will be capacity. Because if they locate it in an area where even our GCCA guiding document says there's no capacity, then we will think that they've priced in the waiting. That will have to happen. Because,
and it'll be frustrating for them too, because they're wanting to get going with the project.
Definitely.
That's all very well for those who have a transmission network and, they're waiting for this renewable power to come through. But what about the areas that, have yet to be connected to any kind of grid at all? What about those areas? How are they going to be connected to this renewable power?
In fact, in South Africa, since 1994, we've done a lot in terms of extending electricity to all the consumers in South Africa. At this stage, we are over 85% of households connected. The nice thing about the South African grid, all the generators, whether it's renewable energy or it's fossil power, it gets pulled into the grid. And then our distribution arm then distributed to the end customer. Therefore, it doesn't matter whether a customer is sitting closer to the renewable energy plants, the power gets pulled to the grid, all of it, and then it's distributed to the end customer. At the end of the chain, it doesn't matter whether the power is green or dirty. There's no difference because all of it gets consolidated into the national grid.
So as far as new transmission plans into rural areas that have not got access to electricity currently, are those plans also still on the go? Are there big plans to expand the network further into the rural areas?
Definitely. That has always been in our plans. If you look at the recent publication that we made of the Transmission Development Plan, which we published in October last year, in the next 10 years, we'll be spending in excess of 160 billion rand. And in that 160 billion rand is creating capacity where there was none in terms of extending electricity now to the end customers. For instance, just last year, we completed the first injection of 400 kV in the Transkei area. Because we were always told that in the Transkei specifically, electrification was held back because there was no capacity. And last year, we managed to have the first injection of 400 kV in the Umtata area, which means it's going to extend electrification even further.
And with regards to increasing the energy source to these areas, I mean that's obviously going to include renewable energy in quite a big way. Because at the moment, I think, as far as outages are concerned, the load shedding that we are experiencing currently, I mean, surely expansion of the network might cause big problems if you don't have sufficient power to send to these new areas. The expansion as well as the increase in renewable energy, is this going to resolve all our issues at the end of the day?
The thing that will resolve all our energy issues, I agree with you, at this stage we got energy situation, that we got shortage of energy. But once we got the baseload plants that we're building, that will resolve our energy issues. Renewables will help to some extent, but in terms of resolving all our energy issues, we need the baseload plant up and running. Already we got one unit of Medupi in, which is starting to at least alleviate some of our problems. But ultimately, we need the baseload plants running for us to resolve our energy issues. But as transmission, we can't wait till the energy is resolved. We need to get the wires infrastructure strengthened. And
then bring in the renewable as well as the fossil fuels or whatever it is that we require. I was speaking to a project manager earlier with regards to South Africa and the whole renewable energy development program, and he was saying that there still seems to be a lot of red tape. There's still the program is still quite sluggish in some ways, that it could be faster. Do you agree with that, or do you think it's on track?
For me, I never had that perspective. I always thought the program that our Department of Energy ran is the most successful in the world. In fact, I've had accolades. I had an opportunity of visiting some utilities last year in America and in Europe. Our program is usually rated as the most efficient of the other utilities I've had in the world. But of course, if that person has got that perspective, probably there's something that he knows that I'm not aware of.
It's all about communication, I suppose. Right. According to recent reports, I read that there's apparently a lack of capital, which can pose a risk to the integration of future renewables and baseload independent power producers, especially when it requires deep grid strengthening. Do you want to expand on that?
In fact, it stems from the point that I pointed out earlier, that we always know at the last minute where the successful bidders are going to be. And then at that time, we start now doing the analysis as to what infrastructure is required to connect that plant. That's why you can never have enough capital, because our capital in Eskom, as you know, that we are regulated. We have to apply in advance for funding that we're going to use in the next 5 years. We've got what we call the MYPD process, the multi-year price determination process, so that all investments that we make make sure that they are covered by the tariff. Now, for this MYPD3, for instance, we're in MYPD3 now. We've already put in 5 years back all our infrastructure requirements for this period. Now, whenever there's huge changes to our investment plans, then it means that we don't have enough tariff now to cover
the next part of it.
The next one. That's why most of the problem for funds shortages is mainly because we have to apply for these funds in advance, so that the tariff can cover them. But already for bid number 3.5 and bid 4, we might be able to cover those, but we still have to know who are the successful bidders. But from our assessment of the indicative quotes that we've made, we may be able to connect those. But beyond that, it will depend how much tariff we get in MYPD4, which we're going to apply for it next year, and also what is the capital that Eskom can afford, because besides the renewables, we must still fund the expansion of the normal grid for natural load growth in the country, like the electrification we're talking about.
And I mean, the infrastructure needs to be upgraded, maintained. It's aging. It hasn't been upgraded for quite some time, or maintained for a while. So I'm imagining a lot of the funds is going into just basic maintenance and upgrading currently. Never mind expanding.
No, definitely.
Okay. Will Eskom meet the goals set for transmission grid development, or do these goals have to be relooked at? Are you on track with regards to the transmission expansion, upgrade, maintenance, or you still feel that your department's a bit behind?
In fact, what always catches us to be behind is sometimes even our execution ability. For instance, in South Africa, we've got a shortage of line contractors, transmission line contractors. At this current stage I'm talking to, there's only 4 line contractors, and we're constructing close to 800 kilometers per annum. Those are some of the things that draws us back. In the past, in fact, even up to now, it has never been the shortage of capital. It's always been our execution ability to be able to execute all these plans. Our transmission development plan is always very ambitious in terms of making the grid world standard. But we always have a drawback with the execution ability of that program. I can see now in this MYPD3 period that we're in now, the shortage of funding is creeping in. But it's for the first time that we have a problem with funding. We always had a problem of execution. Now the problem of funding is coming in because of the, as you are aware, that we applied for a 16% tariff increase, which was declined. We got only 8%. That 8% meant, in actual fact, that Eskom had to live with 5%, because 3% of that was for renewables. Was to make sure that we pay the energy from the successful IPP projects, and also to do the infrastructure to connect them. Which this 5% meant that Eskom must do the normal strengthening for load growth, as well as do the build that we're doing, the massive build that we're doing of Kusile, Metupi, and Ngula. Hence now we're experiencing a shortage of capital now to fund the transmission network. But of the capital that we have, there's no issue of us not executing that.
Oh, well, that's good news.
Because we've actually built capacity even now for line contractors.
All right. Well, that's good news. So all in all, the future's not too dark per se in South Africa. There is a shining light at the end of the tunnel, and well, that's good news for South Africans as well as those who are wanting to invest in the country. Just to end off, what are you hoping to achieve at the conference over the next 3 days?
At the conference, for me, I would like to come out. In fact, the takeout I would like the people to from the presentation is that South Africa is open for business. Our energy challenges are going to be resolved soon. For me, I'm not giving even beyond 2 years before we get our energy challenges resolved. As soon as I mentioned before, as soon as we get our base load power plants up and running, there will be no issues because luckily as we speak now, our transmission infrastructure is strong, our distribution infrastructure is strong. For instance, I mean, just 5 years ago, there's a key metrics that we use in distribution, like the SIDs and SIFIs, like how long it takes for your power to be restored once it's off. We started with 60-hour waits for our distribution customers to get supply restored after a fail. Now that has come down to below 40 hours, which is a big improvement.
That is a huge improvement.
Which means our distribution infrastructure is strong, our transmission infrastructure is strong. The only thing we need to resolve is the energy. Once the energy is
quite
up
a large
running,
part of it.
Yeah, which is going to be resolved in the next 2 years.
That's good.
Because I mean, already the IPP power plants alone, they're going to give us 3,900 megawatts. Once all these bid 1, 2, 3 are connected. At the moment already we've got 1,700 from the IPP projects that are already on the grid. And we got the Medupi Unit 1, Unit 6, the first unit, already connected to the grid. And as more units come in of Medupi and Kusile and Ingula, our pump storage plant down in Drakensberg, as soon as those get to the grid, I'm telling you, our energy issues will be a thing of the past.
Well, this is good. This is good news. This is good news for South Africa and for foreign investment and local investment. So, thank you very much for sharing that with us. I wish we could go on longer. I've got a lot more questions for you, but I'm sure we'll link up during the course of the event. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you very much for joining us, and feel free to have a look on our site at the other studio interviews that we'll be conducting over the next 3 days. Thank you for joining us.